Everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of July and the new moon that we have coming up in Cancer on the 17th. Now, the astrology, particularly for the second half of July, is powerful, it's complex, it's very volatile, and there's a lot to say. So I've already done a video just a couple of days ago about the shift of the nodal axis from Taurus Scorpio into Aries and Libra. And that's a very important part of this second half of July, and indeed it stays in those opposing pairs of signs, Aries, Libra, for the next 18 months. This is really easy to track in your chart, and it's a very powerful thing to track in your chart because I really believe it operates at the soul level. So I'll put the link for that video below, but really very helpful for you to watch that. You'll be missing a big chunk if you don't follow that. And also just to say with regard to that, I often get these kinds of comments, but I got quite a few, particularly on that nodal axis shift video, that when I talked about the nodal axis was also in those same signs, Aries, Libra, for instance, from December 2004 to June 2006, I got quite a lot of people saying, oh gosh, that was the most terrible, terrible time, house burnt down, car crash, dog died, husband left, just a whole series of catastrophes. And it's really, really important to know that those are almost certainly not linked directly to the nodal axis shift. They sound much more that level of crisis and ending, sound much more like Pluto transits or solar arcs, and really do know that there is never just one transit going on in your chart at any one time. I wish it were that easy. It wouldn't have taken me all of these years and still learning if it were that easy. So astrology is multi-layered. One astrologer, and it escapes me who it was, but it was someone who's very respected, actually calculated that within the birth chart itself, they're up to 3,000 variables before you start to add on the transits, the progressions, the solar arcs, the aspects to the midpoints, etc., a shift of the nodal axis. So it is like a multi-dimensional jigsaw. That's why astrology is so vast and so complex. So don't just think the nodal axis was in that position then, and that means all of those awful things are going to happen again, because they're not. Those are very rare occurrences. So I don't want people to go into fear. That's not why I do these videos. I want to put out information that I hope is reassuring and will give you guidance and ultimately will lead to your empowerment. So just know that it's never just one transit. So I'd strongly advise you just to stick to the house areas, which I'm talking about in that video. This is true of any astrologer talking about these things. Just to stick to the house area where the nodal axis will fall. You can track the daily movement of the nodal axis on astro.com for free. Just stick to that and don't go beyond that, because it's very easy to get into kind of catastrophic thinking when actually it could have been a really wonderful transit for you. I hope that's clear. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the new moon, which is happening on the 17th of July. It's happening in Cancer at 24:56 at Cancer. It's happening at about 11:35 a.m. Pacific and 7:35 p.m. UK time. So let me show you the chart. Okay, here we go. So as always, this is set for London, England. Ignore the clock face, ignore the houses. We're just going to focus on where the planets fall and their aspects to each other. But there is a lot to say here. So I'm going to take it slowly, take it one step at a time. So first of all, we see the new moon here. The sun and moon are always together. So see where 24 of Cancer falls in your chart. See which house area. Is it career? Is it family? Is it money? Is it health? What is it? Because that will help you define the intention, the correct intention to set it's perfect time to set a new intention at this new seeding point. What new seed are you planting that you want to manifest in your life? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website, go to the link below, buy a 2-part video series, and you can literally watch those videos forever to infinity. And they will help you understand the meaning with every update I ever do. So, very dynamic, powerful new moon. Because I have talked a lot in recent videos about Pluto squaring the nodal axis. The south node isn't normally shown in a chart, but it's always directly opposite the north node, which now the north node, I don't want to get too much in technicalities here, but there's a true north node and there's a mean, like an average north node, and they're actually very close. So using solar fire, the north node is literally just tipped into the end of Aries. Remember that the nodes move backwards through a sign. They move from 29 degrees through to 0 again. But nevertheless, round about 17th, 18th, the nodes will shift from, the north node will shift from Taurus into Aries, the south node will shift from Scorpio into Libra. Now, it doesn't look like this is a T-square because it looks a bit squiffy, but that's because of the house system I'm using. So don't worry about that. Just assume that this is a 90-degree angle between 29 of Capricorn and 29 of Aries, and equally 29 of Libra. But it isn't just that, because it's a cardinal grand cross, because it also includes the new moon at virtually 25 of Cancer. So this is a square, a square, a square. This is an extremely powerful configuration. It's very action-oriented. It's very dynamic. So let me, again, take it piece by piece. Now, I've talked in recent videos how the square of Pluto to the nodal axis, which we've got until November, is a huge evolutionary vice, which is tightening. In fact, Pluto is exactly square to the nodal axis on the 22nd of July, the 25th, and the 28th. So this second half of July in particular, although this aspect continues till November, is really going to squeeze us on our choices. With all of those micro choices we make in a day, are we coming from fear or are we coming from love? Are we falling back on the old ways, or are we moving forward with love to define our future? Are we a victim? Are we a creator? Because you can't be at both ends of the spectrum at the same time. You can't be in fear and also in love. You can't be a victim and also a creator. You have to choose your point of focus. And as you know, I would strongly recommend that you choose love and you step into being a co-creator. And that is really reinforced by the shift of the nodal axis, the north node into Aries. And again, I talk about that in detail in that other video, because the south node, which is what we're moving away from, suggests a moving away from Libra, people pleaser, perhaps compliance. We're shifting into our inner authority and our power. So this square is really asking us, is our focus of power external, as it has been in the past all through our lives, top-down authority figures, or is it now becoming internalized? Do we have a strong sense of center, inner authority, power? I know who I am. I know where I'm going. Doesn't have to be ego-driven, violent in any way. Just boom. I know how I am operating in my life as a clearly defined individual who knows what I want. Now, this part of the Cardinal Grand Cross, Cancer. Cancer is a beautifully sensitive, loving water sign. It's extremely kind, empathetic, sympathetic. It instinctively knows what other people need to feel nurtured, very motherly energy, but also what we ourselves need to feel nurtured. It's very much the sign of motherhood wanting to nurture others. And it's also the sign of emotional security. So there will be a strong sense at this new moon in Cancer that we want to protect our loved ones, our family, our friends, whoever. We want to protect our loved ones and give them a greater sense of emotional security. And it may well be that it is instinctive to fall back to those old patterns that we think will give us a sense of safety and emotional security. But this cardinal grand cross is saying that isn't necessarily the case anymore. We have to be really brave and step out to create something new. And the message for that is really coming from this sextile from Uranus to the new moon, the sun and moon. Because that's saying, do it in a new way. Have new ideas, innovate, but very much do it in community, do it in groups, do it in collaboration. Because moving forwards, I think that is most certainly where our sense of emotional security is going to come from. Our homes, maybe even. We're going to be living together in groups. For some people, that's going to be the case. So we have to be brave. You know, that wonderful, I always forget, is it the philosopher who talked about it? You know, he said, come to the edge. And they said, no, we'll fall. He said, come to the edge. And he pushed them and they flew. You know, that's the feeling I get here. And we are going to be having big ideas. Jupiter square to Mercury here is big ideas about our future. It's quite visionary. It's linked to higher consciousness and bigger horizons than we've had before. And that's feeding into this new moon as well. The other thing that I think is important to say is that Neptune is trine to this sun and moon. So whatever we're creating as a new home or a new nest or a new emotional sense of security has to have a spiritual context to it, Neptune. And we are connecting in bigger and bigger ways to these communities. I mean, I'm very, very aware of this myself, being in a community where initially it was a small group of people, but of course all those people in the group also know other people in further geographies, in other groups, and it's like a spider's web, you know, spreading and spreading and spreading and becoming global. So we have so many international connections now, all on the same wavelength. It's our soul tribe, if you like. It's our family of frequency. We are connecting across wider and wider geography to form a grid of light, essentially, which is really beautiful, and it's happening very quickly. Now, we do have several quincunxes throughout the second half of July. I'm not going to detail all of them because I've already got just so much to talk about in this video. But quincunxes are 150-degree aspects, normally with a 2-degree orb, by the way. They're a little bit like a stool with a leg missing. They need some adjustment, a little bit unbalanced, a little bit volatile energy. But actually, we have something really wonderful here because we actually have two quincunxes leaning together. And this is the quincunx between Pluto and Venus, and also the quincunx between Neptune and Venus. So in leaning together, they have stability. And this is actually known, it's quite a rare configuration, as the finger of fate or the finger of God. And it has a stable base, which is the sextile between these two planets here. And it's like a long, skinny triangle that points to a particular planet, which is here, Venus. If you have anything like this in your own chart, a finger of fate, a finger of God, it is really signaling a special destiny, a special gift, or a special destiny for this lifetime, depending on which planet, which sign, and which house it's in at this pointy end of the skinny triangle. So, Pluto quincunx Venus. Now, if we just take that quincunx on its own, this can signal some fundamental wealth change or financial change. And that's also reinforced, by the way, as with Uranus square to Venus, but I'll come back to that in a moment. It can be very intense and passionate emotions. It can be around jealousy and possessiveness or control, that kind of thing, particularly if Venus is falling in your 5th or 7th houses at this time. And again, separately taking Neptune, quincunx Venus, this can be wonderful for aesthetics, for creativity, for art, beauty. But here, this whole configuration put together is about powerful spirituality, powerful unconditional love, connection to source, if you like, connecting to Venus, planet of love, in Leo, sign of the heart. And Venus is actually conjunct a fixed royal star of Persia called Regulus at 2950 of Leo. By the way, fixed stars only move a degree every 72 years, so they stay in the same position essentially for a lifetime. So Regulus, the symbolism of Regulus is the heart of the lion. So not only do we have strength here, but we have strong love that is heart-based, Leo, heart-based, connected to source, and this is very beautiful. This is really anchoring spirituality in our hearts, which of course is where it's got to be. And moving forwards, I'd strongly suggest that we do everything from the heart. And this isn't a pink, fluffy, romantic love. This is love as a state of being, that we do everything from the heart, because there's a lot of Aquarius energy coming down the track, as you know, once Pluto moves into Aquarius for 20 years. That's head energy, it's intellect, it's higher mind, it's very clever, lots of innovation, but we need to stay rooted in the heart to stay connected to our humanity and to connect to the cosmos via our hearts. So that's a very, very important configuration here. So, as I say, Uranus is square to Venus. This again can suggest some financial volatility, and it's really in that square all month. It's wonderful also for art, again, creativity, and it can suggest zany colors, very individual expression in your art, electric, wild colors, but it can be particularly linked to tangible materials, Taurus, to pottery, to ceramics, to sculpture, that kind of thing, tiling, that kind of thing. So that can be a lovely aspect. But on the 22nd of July, Venus starts its retrograde phase for 42 days, and it moves from 28 degrees of Leo back to 12. And whenever Venus is moving retrograde, and by the way, it also was moving retrograde in August, September 2015, and again, August, September 2007. It does an 8-year cycle. So if you think back, if you can remember what was happening for you in those years, because again, it was retrograde in Leo, whenever Venus moves retrograde, it's like a rethinking or a reassessment around love, around relationships, around your financial situation. And that may be particularly important because headed down the track, we have our very last eclipse in the Taurus Scorpio series on the 28th of October at 5 degrees of Taurus. So that's an important lunar eclipse. So it may be important now to reassess your finances, but it's very much about reassessing your values. And that of course, is a very big message of Uranus in Taurus until 2026. Because our values are what we build our reality on. Everything comes from those values. So that's an important part of that too. Now, as part of this T-square, it isn't just Uranus and the nodes and the new moon. We also have Eris as part of this cardinal square, Grand Cross, and Haumea at 2857 of Libra. Now, Eris actually becomes stationary retrograde from the new moon till the end of July. This is huge astrology. It's dynamic, it's powerful, it's packed, It's squeezing our choices like a tube of toothpaste to be very conscious, alert, and aware of what we're creating. But Eris moves stationary direct on the 21st at 25:15 of Aries. And whenever a planet, as you will know, moves stationary in either direction, it magnifies the symbolism. So Eris, as you might remember, is the sister of Mars. She's warrior energy. She's the truth teller. She's the feisty street fighter. She is utterly uncompromising around issues of social inclusion, truth, and justice. Now, already at this new moon, the North Node is conjunct Eris. It will become more and more tightly conjunct through August and September and really continue for the rest of the year. So that will, because the North Node is in Aries as well, it is likely in some areas. I mean, look at France right now. Look at France and the protest. And that, I understand, is spreading to Switzerland and Belgium right now. It is likely to increase social unrest in the pursuit of truth and justice and social inclusion. Nobody excluded. So this is the kind of breakdown side, if you like, reinforcing Pluto in the last few degrees of Capricorn, the breakdown of the old world, the old systems, the old society. But what we have at the other end is Haumea. Haumea, one of the strongest symbols we have for New Earth. She's an incredible regenerative, creative energy linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. She's even egg-shaped as a dwarf planet. So there's a kind of seesaw again of the old and the new. You know, fear and love, victim, creator. Which way are you going to go? Because you can't go both at once. You are either in fear or in love. You're either a victim or a creator. You have to choose. They're polar opposites. And it's making us very aware, I think, of our thoughts, our actions, and our choices as we go through these months. You know, this is huge in terms of our evolution. Now, not only that, but on the 20th, these are all very concentrated days, as you can see, one after the other. We already have Mars opposing Saturn. And on a personal level, this, in its positive expression, this can be very good for focused, detailed work, where you've got to get all the details exact and right. And Saturn will give you a lot of discipline in completing that process. If it's not expressing as well, it can be one foot on the accelerator, Mars, and the other foot on the brake. And that there's a spinning of wheels and there's an irritability and a frustration. But the positive expression, if you can combine the two principles, are cautious, patient work. Cautious, patient, detailed work that is very productive. However, in the global world, the mundane astrology, whenever I see hard aspects between Mars and Saturn, that really is an aspect for the military becoming more prominent in some way, you know, disciplined action of the military. So that's a very strong opposition. And then just 2 days later, on top of everything else I've said, the Sun exactly opposes Pluto. So the Sun becomes exact in this cardinal grand cross, raising issues around power in a major way in your own personal life, but for sure out on the world stage. We also have here Jupiter semi-square to Neptune. Now, some of you may remember that way back in April last year, April 22, we had a conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune. Now, this happens every 13 years, but it had been a very long time indeed, well over 100 years since we'd had it in Pisces. We have the modern ruler and the ancient ruler of Pisces coming together in that conjunction. And that was very mystical, really. It was really helping us birth a higher level of spirituality. So this is the first hard aspect. With any pairs of planetary cycles, you always look to the seed point, the original conjunction, and then when it gets to the first hard aspect, so squares, oppositions, etc., those are testing points for what we birthed at the conjunction. So the birth was the seeding point was April 22. So this, as the first checkpoint, if you like, may either work as seeing how far you've come in your spiritual growth over the last year and a bit. You know, have you grown? Can you look back down the mountain and feel good about that? But it can also merely Jupiter expand the confusion, the overwhelm, the disillusionment, the fog. It can work in that way too, less positively. So be aware and try and use it in the most positive expression, to use it for your spiritual development, because boy, do we have that available for us right now. Just before we leave this chart, Mars is sesquiquadrate Eris, hard aspect, pouring energy into the street fighter. I think we're going to see a lot with this, a lot of truth, a lot of revelation, a lot coming to light, and that has to happen while Pluto is moving through these last few degrees of Capricorn. It exits Capricorn in January next year, has a quick dart back September to October, and then is fully in Aquarius for 20 years. So it has to have done its job, Pluto in Capricorn, to uncover any corruption by that time. So this year is the principal year it's going to be doing that, because it's only going to be in Capricorn for 3 months next year. So no doubt there is huge noise, drama, colour, radical, fast-moving events on the world stage, no doubt. And if you are externally focused, if you are watching the nightly news, it's going to be dizzying. You're going to be knocked off balance. You're going to be leaking power. And one of the big messages of, all I've been sharing with Pluto square the nodal axis is really, particularly now the North Node is moving into Aries, is your focus of power external, as it has been through our lifetimes of top-down authorities, or are you really starting to develop that inner authority, that inner sense of power, the I know who I am, I know my center? Because in evolutionary terms, it's the North Node, remember, it's our collective evolution. That's where we are headed. And so I'd really encourage you to tune out the noise, to tune out the drama. And what we've been able to do as humanity, which is really remarkable, through our own efforts, no one's come to save us. There's been no leader who's stepped in from heavenly realms or whatever. We've done this ourselves as humanity. We've been able to raise our consciousness sufficiently to create new timelines, higher timelines. We are continuing to do that all the time. And what that means is we are constantly now creating new future possibilities and new future trajectories that were not available to us before. Equally, that raising of our consciousness produced the portal, which I talked about in previous videos, of Heaven's Gate. It was called Heaven's Gate by Jim Self, who's a spiritual teacher in America, and also Jeffrey Hoppe in America. They both used that term. And this was a portal that became available to us to open us up individually to our greater divinity and multidimensionality. So that's there right now. And we did that collectively by raising our consciousness. So over the next 3 years, I believe that each of us, kind of one by one, as we can raise our consciousness, we're all on a different soul journey, no judgment here. If we wish to, we have the opportunity to raise to that level, to experience something we've never experienced before in possibly any lifetime. So that was about a second layer of light coming in. And that term was phrased by the wonderful seer Amanda Lawrence, who I think reads energy in such a pure way. We had another boost of light at the Aries equinox. We had another boost of light at the Cancer solstice that we've just had. We're going to have another surge of light at around 7th of July, 7/7, another on 8/8, Lionsgate, another at the Libra equinox. Because the two big sources of ingredients for our evolution are the much increased solar activity of the sun. Right now, we are in solar cycle 25. That was expected to peak in 2025. But if you follow the scientists on spaceweather.com, they have now pulled that peak forward to the end of this year or early next. And the level of solar activity is, I think, unprecedented, certainly in our lifetimes. We had a huge X-class flare right on the full supermoon just a few hours ago. I'm filming this on the 3rd. And as you may know, the way the solar flare scale works, it's a Richter scale. It's like an earthquake scale. So an X-class flare is 10 times the strength of an M-class, and M-class is 10 times the strength of a C-class. So this was huge. And many of us were either wired to the mains and couldn't sleep at all, or absolutely flattened by it. I was in the latter category and was absolutely flattened by it. So these have a strong physical effect on us because our little physicality, our little individual energy bodies are having to assimilate so much new information that is being brought forward from the galaxy. Equally, because we're moving through the galactic current sheet, we have these huge waves of photonic light coming in. Light carries information, and light carries intelligence. And together, they are forming a weave with our DNA to reactivate our DNA, to remember, to stir our DNA again, to enable every cell in our body to hold more light as we move towards becoming the light body, this crystalline plasma. And what that means as well, as we can embody more light, is we become, it's much easier for us to receive more information from the galaxy. We're tuned into different channels, if you like. We're tuned into different channels to get more information. And this is going to continue in leaps and bounds as we go through the next few months. As I say, I think over the next 3 years in particular, those of us who wish to are going to be making those evolutionary leaps. And the way to think of it is, if you think of an acorn, a tiny acorn, encoded in that acorn is a vast oak tree that's going to grow to maybe 60 feet high within its lifetime. And that seems impossible when you look at a tiny acorn, but it's encoded in the information. If you think of a caterpillar, that seems another impossible evolutionary jump, that it's going to turn into a butterfly within its lifetime. Again, all the information for the butterfly is encoded in the caterpillar. And for us as humanity, encoded in our DNA, was that we were meant to go through this quantum evolutionary leap at this time. It's encoded in our DNA to go through this process right now. And it isn't going to happen all in a day. As I say, I think over the next 3 years, it's particularly fast, particularly powerful, but that is encoded in us, and it's being activated by the level of light which we're receiving. So just receive the light. Just absorb the light. Imagine it's pouring in through your crown chakra. And really try as far as you're able, because there's going to be, is there going to be challenge? Yes. Is there going to be chaos? Yeah. Are there going to be curveballs? Are we going to be kind of knocked off our perch from time to time? 100%. Absolutely guaranteed. But can we bring ourselves back to that equilibrium and to that stillness? Because it's the energy that's changing everything. It's the energy that's carrying us beyond, because the higher we get in frequency, the more we just go beyond all of this, beyond the wars, the death, the poverty, the misery. And I'm not saying to ignore people in need at all. we can be there to be compassionate and kind and loving and hopefully of practical help as well. But stay in a positive state. Everything cascades from your inner state. You can't experience peace in your reality unless you feel it in your inner being. You can't experience love in your reality unless you embody it in your inner being, your inner state. Your inner state defines everything in your reality. So make that your focus going forwards, because that's where things become simple. Out there, it's really complicated. So just keep broadcasting your light like a lighthouse. So tune out the noise. When it all gets too much, just remember, just shut your eyes, drop into your breath, slow and deepen your breath, drop into your heart, and within seconds, not only do you feel your breath slowing and deepening, you feel your heartbeat slowing, you're reducing the amount of cortisol in your blood, you're boosting your immune system. The longer you do it, the more those things happen. And you can just do that at home for free. The more you come together in a group, the more that energy is magnified. But nevertheless, you can rapidly change your energy state just by doing that. And how easy is that? So know that our evolution is encoded for these times. I mean, ancient prophecies talked about it. Even Dr. Zach Bush was referring to this the other day in a video, as somebody I greatly respect in his views. Tune out the noise, tune out the drama, drop into the stillness, and love in the bliss. The more you can love in the bliss, the faster, together, holding hands, we make this evolutionary jump. I hope that's helped you. Huge amount there. Don't forget to watch the nodal axis shift video, because I think that will help you a lot in your own life too. And remember what I said, there's never just one transit happening at any one time. God bless. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now.